Hey, welcome back to the Expert Scale Show. I am joined today by two incredible members of this podcast. We have the one, the only Anik Singal in the house. Anik, great to have you here with us today.
What's up? Yes, glad to be here. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And we are also joined by Josh Troy, who has recently become somewhat of a friend, somewhat by accident, but a master of high-ticket sales and building high-performing and compliant sales teams. What's up, Josh? Glad to have you in the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Richard. And I'm just glad I could be considered somewhat of a friend.
There you go, man.
I caught that too. I caught that. I'm like, that's a great way. Yeah, I kind of like him. Yeah. He's all right.
It's a quick friendship. It's newer, so
we've only gotten to second base in friendship, guys. So
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Just didn't want to go too far down the rabbit hole there.
Good call out, because I heard that and I was like, yeah, that's not. And then Josh just leaned right into it. I like it.
Love it. Well, Josh, our friendship will really be determined by how today goes. So,
agreed.
But I'm so excited for this conversation. Today feels like a dynamic duo, and I'm just sandwiched between you two. We're going to talk about how do you build high-performing and compliant sales teams in the current era? I know a lot of people listening to this podcast have seen big changes in the high-ticket and online space in the last couple of years. You talk to business owners, and they'll tell you, man, conversions are down. Show rates are way down. It's harder to get people on the phone. When you get people on the phone, the sales cycle's a lot longer. And everywhere we look, if you've been following Anik at all, you know, man, a lot of people are going down for compliance issues. A lot of people in the high ticket space. And so I think this conversation could not be more timely today. And I'm super excited to dive in. Just a little bit of background on Josh, in case our listeners don't know you. Dude, you have cut your teeth in the online marketing space. You started a video marketing agency when you were 21. You went into outbound sales. You drove incredible results there. And as well as, it looks like you have some background in real estate investment. Now you run Wires from Strangers, which, by the way, I think is a dope name for a sales agency. How did you come up with that name, by the way, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty funny story because I love the name of it, right? It's fitting for high ticket sales. We're taking cold traffic and converting them into high ticket raving customers. So it's just so fitting, right? The highest form of a payment transaction is a wire. And then there's that kind of, I don't know if you would call it alliteration, but the phonetic sound of Wires from Strangers, it just sounds kind of neat. Tell you the truth, what happened was I was, like a lot of us that are in this industry, we buy domains anytime we think of something cool. So I had a list of like hundreds of domains and I bought Wires from Strangers. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be initially. But since my expertise and my passion had always been in sales, I knew that it would be something around there. I didn't know if it was consulting or, my own coaching program. I wasn't exactly sure. And then when I started this company and when I got into it, because it was actually, we'll probably get to this, but I kind of stumbled into it because some of my consulting agreements ended up expanding. They brought me in for one thing, then they needed sales reps and they needed training. And, WFS group, Wires from Strangers, formed. And so I needed a name for it. Wires from Strangers was just such an obvious choice.
Obvious choice. And I love that you bought the domain name ahead of time. I always tell people you can tell how far swung someone is on the entrepreneurial spectrum by how many domain names they own. So I think Anik might have us all beat, though. How many domain names do you own, bro?
I don't know, man. But can I tell you something? So I just so funny you brought this up. So yesterday, my dad does like our family accounting or whatever. And so he brings me my bills and he'll say, go through your credit card. It's like the worst part of the month. I hate going through it because he judges me the whole time as I'm going through it and just like shakes his head at me. It was kind of high. And I was like, I don't think I didn't spend that much money on this company. It's my personal company. I don't really do much with it. And it was Namecheap, $3,000. All right. It was like $3,100. But here's the thing. All right, here's the thing. That's just like I get billed by Namecheap all the time. Mm-hmm. That's just like part of my annual billing. And I'm like, how many? So my dad's like, oh, what did you? I don't want to tell him. I'm like, that's probably 300 domain names that got renewed at the same time. So I don't know. I have a serious addiction. And then Russell tells me yesterday, he's like, I just bought subconscious.com. And I'm like, damn you. I want to own a cool domain that's like one word like that. And...
Yeah, we need like Domains Anonymous. I'll say this 100%. Last thing and we'll move on. For
Josh,
anyone
I've talked about this before. Yeah, I've actually joked
Yeah.
about it on Facebook before. Domains
Right.
Anonymous.
Well, I mean, for anyone listening to this that thinks that domains are like a great investment, I'll tell you it's not, because I bought so many with the idea that I'll flip them later. But you get billed, like Anik said, so many freaking times that like anything you would have made is gone at that point. But anyways, funny side tangent.
Somebody needs to
It's like
talk about the
Bitcoin.
holding. Somebody needs to talk about the holding costs of domains. Yeah.
Well, so it's like this. I brought this up with a friend of mine. I said, Bitcoin. I'm all crypto. I like crypto. I FOMOed into every damn coin that there is. And but Bitcoin. My problem with Bitcoin is this. I refuse to let go of it. Like I refuse. I will take debt out and pay for something before I cash in my Bitcoin. So I was thinking about it. I'm like, how is it actually worth anything to me? Because I'm so emotionally attached to it that I'll never actually sell it or get rid of it. And that's domains. That's domains. Like you could make me a good offer right now for a domain, and I'm probably not going to take it because it's my baby. I want my domain. So yeah, not good investments at all. I'm spending easily 5 figures, if not maybe at this point, maybe multiple 5 figures a month on them. I mean, a year on them. And
Yeah.
I need to stop.
Well, at least yours paid off, Josh. And hey, we own expertscale.com, which is the name of this show. So we got a couple that paid off.
Sure.
Josh,
5K.
I'm really 5K. There you go.
I paid $5K for that. It's not bad.
That's not bad actually at all. That's actually a really good. We got a really good deal on that one. Josh, tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming now known as the king, so to speak, in both building outsourced sales teams in the high ticket and kind of info space and education space, while also doing it compliantly. A lot of people out there doing what you're doing. I would say most of them, compliance is very far from their radar as far as what they're really focused on day to day. So tell me about the merging of those two worlds and kind of what led to what you guys now uniquely do at WFS.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when I talk about this, I want to try to keep the relevant pieces of the story because I found, you know, going backwards far enough where like I got my start in sales and how all of that happened isn't super interesting. But just to summarize a lot of that and speed us up to today's world, you know, I've always been in sales. In fact, you know, I knew I wanted to start a company. I didn't know what I wanted to start. My first one that worked, right? We all have little side hustles and things when we're trying to find our business. But my first actual business was a video marketing agency, right? And we did big productions. I mean, it started off, my first video we ever produced was about $1,500. And I sold that company now, but at the end of it, we were producing $300,000 commercials. So it was very high ticket in the video production space, TV commercials, lots of YouTube ad content type stuff as well, Meta, whatever it is. And when I started that business, it was nothing more than me thinking to myself, what can I sell? Right? What can I sell that a lot of people need that I kind of liked? And I thought storytelling was so important in sales that video production and creativity, it just made so much sense for me to sell. And the last piece I'll say, and I don't mean this out of integrity because I think the entire point here is I only want to sell anything in integrity ever. But there was this thought where I was like, you can kind of make anything sound cool in creative. You know, you could like any concept of why that concept for the commercial was good. It was like so easy to explain and articulate. And as long as you could back it up with some data, it was just free range. I mean, you could think of anything out of thin air and, you know, match some data and strategy behind it and sell it. So I really liked that. It was fun for a long time. What happened is I started one of our main ways that we got clients is that we were partnered with digital marketing agencies and they were fascinated. So we would produce video content for their clients, right? And they were fascinated on how I was getting my clients, which was all outbound sales. Now, the funny thing about that is I wasn't like an outbound sales guru. I just didn't have any money for ads. You know, I was like brand new in business and I'm like, I didn't want to take that risk. And I really didn't understand business at all yet. And so for me, I was like, well, give me a list of numbers and a phone and I'll figure it out from here. And I'll tell you this, man, I got hung up on more times than most people have even picked up the phone, right? Like I got hung up on a lot and I figured it out. And after a certain period of time, it became kind of a differentiator and an X factor because it was a skill set that nobody else was willing to go through the pain to build. So I loved outbound sales. It became a superpower of mine. But these digital marketing agencies saw my outbound motion and they saw what I was doing to get these clients. And they're like, what the heck? Like, can you show us how to do that? Because most marketing agencies specialize in inbound. They didn't have an outbound motion. So really where this started is I started consulting and building outbound sales teams and outbound motions for digital marketing agencies, right? Now, where it segued, because there's a jump of like, okay, well, how did you get into the coaching space in the high ticket world? Well, what happened from there is one of my clients from my video production company, he was, was a real estate investor. He had a TV show. He had all of these things. And we were actually producing the commercials and the video ads for that business. I started getting more involved on the sales side of the real estate investment firm. And then that's what opened my eyes to real estate investing education. So that's how I sort of segued in. Now, there's a little bit more to the story, which I think we'll get here because this is a little long-winded. But the one other thing that I would add is I consider myself really lucky for this experience. But my first exposure actually to the education space was an FTC lawsuit. Now, not from me. It wasn't something that I went through. It was the world that I came into and the people that I knew that were in the coaching space. Yeah, Anik said, don't say that. Exactly. The seminar businesses, we all know about how this happened, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole on that, but the seminar businesses were going through a lot of FTC stuff, and the people that I knew in the space were not directly sued from it, but they were adjacent to it, and they were sharing that. And so from day one, our attorneys and the people that I worked with were like, hey, if we're going to do this, it has to be squeaky clean compliant. So it was kind of cool that I got introduced to the industry from that perspective.
Wow, that's fascinating. What an interesting segue into the space. Whereas I think most people got introed into the space of like, make big promises, make big money.
Yeah.
You got to see what happens when you make big promises that you're not able to always fulfill on or substantiate. And that was your intro. Wow, that's fascinating. So I have a question, and Anik, feel free to interrupt because this is kind of your game. But I would be so interested to know, based on your experience, what's the brass tacks of it, dude? Does selling, what does it actually take to sell compliantly as a high ticket business? And does it hurt conversions? Break down how you see that.
Yeah. 100%. Great question, Richard. And I'll actually say this, and Anik will appreciate me saying this. The thing that messed with my mind the most when I got that exposure right when I was coming into the coaching space, I knew the people that were sued, and they were good people. And that was like so much of the time I hear even clients today of like, we have integrity, we have the best intentions, we have good fulfillment, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, yeah, but so does everybody I've ever known that's been sued directly. I know there's some bad actors out there for sure, but the ones that I knew, they were good people. And I'm like, how did this even happen? That doesn't seem. So I had this fear surrounding me where I was like, all right, we got to dive into this. It's much, much more than just wanting to help people and having solid fulfillment, right? So that's what it isn't. What it is, and I'm not going to have a way to give like a blanket term on what is compliance, but the biggest thing that I've seen it comes down to, and Anik, this is maybe where we'll get into it. You'll challenge me because you have a much bigger perspective. But I would say earnings is the biggest, right? Is that fair? Implied earnings, express earnings. Basically selling something in a way that is attached to a financial outcome. There is so much more to compliance, but to me, I have seen that is the biggest one. That is the biggest one. And so if you're promising results and you're selling something not based on what it is and what it can do for somebody, but you're selling based on this, results, and that's the reason they're buying it, the FTC really does not like that. Now, again, we could get into last dollar rule, right? We could get into just straight up lying and misrepresentations and making sure your claims are substantiated. There's so many other parts to it, but that is probably the biggest one that I see and the one that we focus on the most. What would you say to that, Anik?
Yeah, 100%. So in rating order, earnings stuff, they just despise it. And if you live in that world long enough, you get it, you understand it, right? So my reaction to some of the rules that the FTC has 3 years ago was repulsive, angry. This is stupid. The government's stupid. And now that I feel like I'm looking at the matrix from the outside, and I look at the bad apples in the industry, I actually am in alignment with it. You know,
Right.
I'll say
I
something
agree.
to the tune of, I'm like, you know what? It is actually kind of bullshit to be on the phone with someone you don't know and to within a matter of minutes try to decipher the fact that they will be able to get XYZ result. We wouldn't do that in any other business. If I walked into a Ferrari dealership and the guy's like, look, man, if you buy this Ferrari, you're going to win the Grand Prix. I would laugh that person in the face and walk out. Now, I walk into a dealership and they say it's a really fast car. You can go fast. I'll be like, okay, cool. You know, that's a claim, but it's backed up, substantiated, proven record. Like, I can go fast if I choose to. So
Right.
earnings, absolutely. But it really goes even one level above that, which is the same thing you're saying, is just, it's a claim. You know, you are saying that something can do something. So what I try to tell everybody is, how do you feel when someone tells you something? Like, it's like my car mechanic telling me how to heal my Crohn's disease, right? He's like, hey, listen, man, there's this pill will do it. And I'm just like, how are you telling me that? Like, you are not credible to it. And what evidence do you have? Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've never met anyone with Crohn's that it's healed. But then why are you saying that? It's the dumbest thing you can do, right? I had a company come to me this happened last week. It's a nutraceutical company. They're trying to raise money. Great pitch. Like, they got me on the phone. I don't usually, right? And so they're like, oh, this thing can do following. This replaces XYZ Pharma, which I'm like, whoa, easy there, Tiger. Like, you
Right.
just, don't say that. Really, please. Like, that's worse. But then I just said, this is awesome. Like, so when did you guys do the study? How many people were part of the study? This and that. Like, because they're making such a bold claim.
Right.
He's like, oh, we're still looking for the university that, we need the money to do the study. I'm like, hold on. So you haven't done the study? No. How the hell do you know that this works? Well, in theory, practicality wise, it impacts this part of the body, and that would do this and that would do that. And I said, okay, I understand that, but it's a big claim to make without backing, right? And so my reaction to that was so repulsive. And I'm like, well, that's what the regulator is hearing when they're listening to the call. And so
Absolutely.
you can say whatever the hell you want. I tell people this: you can say whatever you want. The FTC doesn't say there's no line, statement, sentence, words that they say you can't say. There's no such thing. They just say whatever the hell you say, you better have inarguable evidence backing it up.
Right.
And most never do, and hence that's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to your question, Richard, you were talking about how are you building sales teams while keeping these subjects in mind. Well, I'll tell you the number one thing that I think that people make the mistake of. And when I say people, I'm saying like business owners, sales leaders. They meet it with resistance. As Anik mentioned, he was previously in the past, right? They meet it with resistance. And I think that the first thing, which is really kind of true to anything in sales leadership and in a business, is you have to get buy-in on something. And I think that, so for example, we have trainings on FTC compliance. And let me tell you what it isn't. It isn't saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, and we'll fire you if it happens, right? Now, we make the consequences clear, but what it actually does is it educates them on the type of business we want to be, the reason these things are important, and it sells them, our team, on the fact that, like, because I believe this, and I know we're going to get to this, I believe that we are in a trust deficit right now. Trust is at an all-time low. I believe if you have the skill sets to sell compliantly, it actually can be more effective because people appreciate it. Because I think that people can feel it when you're just selling them a bunch of crap and you're overselling, you're overpromising. It triggers sales resistance because it triggers an experience that they've already had before. The reality is, in 2020, 2019, I've been in the coaching space for a while. I know Anik has too. Like, you guys are OGs in the space. Now, in 2020, what's interesting is most people you talk to, maybe it was the first thing they were buying in the coaching space. Nowadays, every other call or more has bought something and has had a bad experience with it. Mm-hmm. So I think that people kind of not correcting can actually even present some more damage to them. But it all starts with buy-in and showing them like how we could do those things, how we could feel good about it, and how we could actually help it enable our sales instead of the opposite.
Can I just say one thing? Amen. That's all I got to say to that. Compliant marketing works better in so many ways. And look, I actually, Richard, want to pivot away here soon away from compliance talk because, there's so much more to sales. It's not just compliant, but this is a really important part.
Of course. People
believe compliance kills a sale. I believe that. Through the point where I was going through investigation, I was forced to market compliantly. Now they've told me while I'm under investigation, just FYI, we're watching everything you do. And I'm doing it begrudgingly and I'm not excited about it. Then I start to do more and more of it and I start to get better, right? It forces you to get better at how you sell. So that you're not selling it on the results, but that you're selling it on the methodology, the systems, what you deliver, the person's inner belief patterns, and you start to get really good at no, not for you, right? I just had a call, I had a voice note with someone today who wants to come to the Expert Summit, and they have come before. They had come to the first one. And the first one, I did my pitch for Board of Experts. They pulled me aside. I've known them for 10 years. And they pulled me aside and they're like, hey, is this right for me? And there's the two Oniks. Richard likes to say there's the two Oniks, okay? There is the sales Onik that's like, is it right for you? Give me your damn credit card. Let's go. And that's the Onik that probably was there for quite some time. Then there's the other Onik that's like, no, it just isn't. I don't know how to, it just isn't. It's not right. Like, I got to walk away from this big check. But I looked them dead in the eyes and I said, hey, man, I love you, but this isn't for you. This isn't right for you. It's not going to help your business. And I'm so glad you're here. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, and he was ready. Had I said, yes, this is for you, that's all I had to say. His card was actually in his hand. Can you imagine? Right. And he was like, I just needed to hear from you. But he's telling me, I trust you. Whatever you say, I'll do. And I know it's not. And I said, no. That was in 2022. We just had a voice note conversation where he wants to come to the next Expert Summit. And he's like, should I come? I respond to him and I said, you know what? Interestingly enough, not only should you come, I'd like to revisit that conversation that we had about the Board of Experts because of the evolution we've had. I actually believe it's perfect for you now. And you know his response to me? I'm in.
I'm ready to go. Exactly.
I'm in.
And you built more trust from that time. And Anik, I'll tell you this and we'll segue out of it. But I do want to say one more thing because I think this is important too. And if people are listening to this and they have a sales team and they're like, okay, that's it. I heard it from Anik and Josh. This is going to convert better. Let's go, baby.
No.
Well, I want to tell you this. There is a skill set to it like anything else. There is training that is required because I will say, if you have a super non-compliant sales team, and I have seen this happen multiple times as well, and you come in and you're like, lay the law, this is what you're doing now, your conversions will drop heavily because you have, to what you said, Anik, it's like, well, you have to sell the methodologies. That's something that I took out of what you just said. Well, what does that mean? It means you need to differentiate more. It means you need to get more strategic and more clarity on who your right fit customer is. Because you're not just selling based on the money they're going to make from it, as one example. And so can it convert better? Can it create a better customer? I think absolutely it can, but not by just flipping a switch. You have to know how to roll it out compliantly and train your team on those skill sets.
It goes. So, all right, we're talking. This is like my,
keep going, guys. This is good stuff.
Man.
Keep going.
You're just hitting them all, right, Josh? So, look, guys, part of our podcast here is to highlight amazing experts that we really think you should do business with. And so let's just get the pitchy part out of the way. I've talked to so many sales teams. By the way, the founders of those sales teams are friends. I like them. I like them a lot. But they don't understand compliance the way that Josh does. That's just the point blank truth. When I spoke to Josh, and Josh, you don't know this, but when we first talked and you're like, oh, we're compliant, I'm like, there we go. There we go. Right. You're compliant. No, you're not. And I had such a repulsive reaction to it but then you started talking 3 levels deeper. We weren't talking about what we say, what we don't say. We're good people. We deliver. We vet our clients, blah, blah, blah. No, you were like 3 levels deeper. You're like, hey, we talk about who the right person is, and we talk about why someone does something, and why our product. You just had all the right questions. I want to go 1 level deeper though, of what you said. Most people listening right now are going to get inspired and try to flip their funnel to from non-compliant to compliant. Good luck. You're going to get destroyed. It's going to absolutely eradicate your conversions. You're going to hate me. You're going to hate Josh. You're going to hate the fact that you listen to this podcast. You'll never come back, and you're going to say we're all bullshit. And pause. Here's the thing. So when a client comes to me, we deal with this all the time. They say, I want to go compliant. I'm like, do you? And then they're like, look at my sales piece. And Greg used to do this to me all the time. He used to piss me off. Hey, Greg, is this sentence compliant? Give me the context. I need the whole thing. No, I don't want to give you the whole thing, Greg. It'll take 5 hours to respond. I just want to know now, 5 minutes. He's like, I got to understand the context. And I send him the whole video. He's like, well, what did they see before this? I'm like, you're killing me, Smalls. What is up with you? Like, just tell me if this is compliant or not. Here's why. So I sat down with someone. This is a true story. If they're listening, they're going to laugh. It was 2 weeks ago. I want to go compliant. They do about 20 million a year. And I'm like, and in my heart, I'm like, no, you don't. I mean, you want to, but like, dude, you're not ready for the journey that it will be, because I know how you sell. I know the mantra of your company. I know how you are. You know, you're a go, money, make the money. Like, I do your incentive systems in your company, your team meetings. I've witnessed them. Like, it's all great. Hoorah. Everyone makes a lot of money, but holy hell, that is not an environment set up for compliant sales processes. I have to get philosophical with the person. I literally have to have like a who am I, what am I question. And I'm worse than Greg now. Like, people hate me even more because Greg at least is asking for context of the pitch. I'm saying, what are you about? What's your business about? What type of customers do you want? What kind of impact do you want to create? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And people get so frustrated. I'm like, I'm not just giving you consultative bullshit. Let me explain it to you in a very practical way why this is important. For me to go compliant and do well with it, I had to fundamentally, completely change the type of customer I want. And what that meant was changing the mission, the ethos of the company, how I talk to my employees, how I write my marketing, how I create my products, how I run my ads, the audiences I attract, the way I price. It is a system-wide shift that has to occur. Then you get to see the benefit of compliant marketing, and you can't flip a switch for a system-wide change. That change is going to take months. It's going to be a transition. There's going to be pain. You're going to have to swallow some of the downtimes. I was forced into it. I didn't have a choice, so I had to swallow those downtimes. But when I arose out of it, I go, oh my God, I would never. Today, if there was a magic wand waved, the FTC stuff went away, and I was given this like protective layer. I'm like, I could never be sued by the FTC ever again. I can say whatever the hell I want. I literally would not go back to what we were doing.
Yep.
And so the way this works is everyone will remember this, okay? Just remember my arm up and down like this, okay? There is a down market in every market, and there's an up market in every market. And I'm not saying this in any derogatory way. If you're a down market, it's just someone who's less experienced, less knowledgeable, more vulnerable, more less patient. They just don't know enough about something to make a good decision about it, right? I don't understand crypto, and this is why I buy the stupidest coins, and I've stopped now, right? And I lost a lot of money because I was just investing in things I don't understand because I was down market. I'm a down market crypto guy. You know where I'm up market? In business. You try to sell me a business or try to get me into business, and I will ask you 30 questions. I'll get deep into it. I'll read your financials. I'll look at what you've done. I'll talk to your team members. I can dissect a business like this, right? Because I'm up market. It's something I know a lot about. I invest wiser in it. So when you sell to down market, you sell non-compliantly because the person you're talking to is like, I got to pay my mortgage next month. I got to make some money, man. Oh, this guy said I can use the internet. I'll make some money, right? And then we feed into that message. I will never forget this. I'm on a podcast one time, and the person asked me something, and they said, they're not from our industry. I was on this like random podcast, like, they're like, what? It's a really random question. I'm like, well, all right, I'll play. I said, I don't like how impatient they are. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, it takes time. Like, they want success right away. And you know what he looks at me? This is years ago. He looks at me and he goes, real confusion in his eyes. And he goes, but isn't that what you tell him? And I just shut up right there. I was like, damn, he's right. Like, if I watch my presentation, their expectations are a direct result of what I'm saying.
So
and
true.
so When you go compliant, down market, conversions plummet because those people are looking for something different and they are the least likely to take action on it. They're the least likely to get results. They're the most vulnerable. They're the ones that the FTC and other regulators want to protect the most. They're the ones that are going to take out the loans and put things in debt that's not good. It's not smart decision making. When you go up market, you're talking to people that are more wiser on that topic. They're most likely to take action on it. They're the most likely to get good results. They'll never leave you. You know what? If they get results with you, they're not going to be on a sales call with another team and another company because they're going to invest more with you. They're the most likely to talk well about you. They're the least likely to file complaints, refunds, chargebacks, and get you in hot water. But you know what the upmarket hates? They hate the hype. As they say, right the hell through it. Right?
Yep.
So
you know what you reminded me of, Anik, too, is this was years ago as well, and I went into this consulting engagement. And to boil down what this client wanted was they wanted to figure out how to change lead quality. They're like, why can I not get, a qualified lead to save my life? And I was like, well, what's the problem? Just describe it to me. And this was a wholesaling offer, right? Real estate wholesaling. And they said, well, like they don't have any freaking money. They don't have any credit. Like they have zero financial capability and they expect like the world on a shoestring, right? And I was like, okay, well, let's look at the marketing. And it's literally being marketed as you don't need any money, any credit, any education to start doing deals. And so it was so funny because like they were directly, I was like, dude, I got good news and bad news. The good news is your marketing is incredibly successful. You're getting exactly what you want. The bad news is you're getting exactly who you want because that's who they're marketing to and that's what they're describing. So anyways, I know we could go down for
but
days.
This is a really important point, man.
It's so important. I just want to come in with a contrarian perspective here because I know there's some people listening who they just heard what you said, Anik. There's some people who've been in the game a while and it blew their minds. And then there's other people who are a little more like me. And here was my experience in the industry, right? You know this, Anik. I came in pre entering the internet marketing industry as a former pastor. And I came in and we were very successful and probably doing very compliant sales in the beginning. And then I got sold on the hype. You got to make big claims and your marketing has to be full of hype. And we went through this whole embattled period. We hired all the consultants, the agencies. We had a outsourced sales agency firm, all these things, and it did not work. And we were tearing our hair out trying to figure out how to scale. Tearing our hair out. Wasting a ton of money on ads. The funny thing was our marketing was bringing the right people, and we couldn't close them in sales. And looking back now, I can point to directly the root of the issue is that all of the messaging in our marketing was speaking to upmarket. That's actually who we wanted, but we had copied or learned from the tactics of people who only knew how to speak to down market. And so I know there are legitimate experts listening to this show or who are part of our community who are pulling their hair out because they are copying the tactics of people in marketing and sales, thinking it will make them successful, and it's actually scaring away the clients they actually want.
Okay, last piece on this, I promise. You're spot on. So look at yourself as a customer, okay? I had this exact experience. I'm not going to mention names, but it's a big person, big marketer. I wanted to give him a bunch of money. Here's the thing. I could have asked him the questions for free and he would have replied and I could have saved myself 15 or 16 grand or whatever I spent. I don't like to do that. So I told him, hey, I'm going to, in order to take your advice seriously, I got to have skin in the game. I want to pay. So connect me to whoever I'm supposed to talk to. So you send me to someone. They're one of their VP of sales or salesperson or whatever. And I get it. So I got on the phone. I did the shindig. And I get on and they start. And I started laughing. I couldn't help it. And the person, they got the script thingy going on, right? So, and he's suave. He's good. He's got his swagger. I get it. And I just said, hey, listen, we'll call him Timmy. I was like, Timmy, listen, here. I don't need it. I don't need the song and dance. Like I'm ready to go. I just have a couple of quick questions, which I didn't get to ask this person about. And here's what I'm looking for. And he's like, well, yeah, but then tell me how you would react. I'm just shut the hell up, dude. Just shut up. Right. He kept resorting back. And I'm like, so I had to say, okay, Timmy, do you know who I am? Like, I've been in this industry. I understand you're reading a script right now. I understand you're doing what you're supposed to do. Good job. right? But I'm telling you, I'm ready to go. I got my credit card in my hand. I just need you to answer these 2 questions. Then he's like, well, I don't know the answer. I says, that's okay. That's a valid answer. So how about this? I gave you the questions. Go find the answers. Call me back. Well, what would it take to? I'm like, I'm not buying right now, Timmy. Like, you got to answer my 2 questions, dude. What's going on?
Right.
I got very frustrated to the point where then I messaged the main person. I said, hey, listen, man, this, and he was laughing. He's like, oh, they're trained hardcore to do this. That's an exact example, though. If I didn't know that main person so well that I could just reach out to them, I would have walked away from that sale, because you're using a down market script on someone who doesn't want to hear that. I'm going to make this decision fast. I'm a business owner. I want what I want. I need it now. I need to implement it next week. Not. He was like, we have a 3-month process. I'm like, you take your 3-month process and shove it up yours. I need this, and I need to apply it next week on Monday, and I'm done.
Yeah.
After that, I don't need your coaching. I don't need those sessions. I'm done. I'll be out of your hair. Right. And so consultative sales are what upmarket like. They don't like the sales pitchy stuff. They want to have a conversation. They want some genuineness. And the minute they don't sense that, they're out the door. And everything about down market sales scripts are not genuine. They are scripty. And the down market doesn't pick up on it because they're not used to it. They do eventually, right? They have 1 bad experience, 2 bad experience. By the 3rd one, the minute you get into that script, they're like, been there, done that. I'm out. Right? So for everyone who's listening, if you're looking to hire someone who's going to help you with your sales, you need to talk to them and just see how they sell you, right? And is there a script, like, or are they just like, so what's up? What are you doing? Like, what do you? How can I help? Right?
Yeah.
And they let you talk, and then they say, oh, okay, great. And then they give you some tips and some advice. And like, if you feel like your experience with them is good, then that's probably how they're going to echo it to your clients as well.
Yeah.
But it really
Anik,
is.
I mean, this is even kind of a good segue, and we'll get into kind of scripting and pitch design, and it would probably take us. I know you had a bunch of things you wanted to go through, Richard, and I'll have you lead me here in a sec. But what you make me think of is having a sophisticated script writing process. Now, I'm going to start by saying this: we don't even use the word script in our business. It's called a talk track, and I've been using the word talk tracks for a decade. Because what a talk track is it's meant to give you some parameters and guardrails for the conversation to go the right direction. But scripting implies word for word types of things. It's very rigid. It's very clunky. It's disingenuous. It's not fluid. And so we create talk tracks, which say these are the main things we want to accomplish, but it has to be organic and it has to flow. And so when it comes to kind of sophisticated scripting, because like you said, the market maturity that we have and the people that have gone through so many of these bad coaching calls, we have to change. Well, no pun intended. We got to flip the script, right? And so one of the things that we do when we're having a sales call, and I have a very specific way that I've built our talk tracks and our templates, and we emulate them differently, and then obviously personalize them for each offer. But in the discovery process, right? I say there's 2 things, right? 2 main things to make it a really effective discovery. Oh, even the program likes that. I got balloons going. So
what the hell is that?
I don't know.
That's a MacBook update right there.
That is letting you guys know to get excited for what I'm about to say.
That is God showing up and saying, I blessed this moment.
Was that compliant? I don't know. It feels a little hypey to me.
Right, exactly. So what we want to do is we want to expand the gap and we want to amplify desire. But let me break that down and what it actually means, because when you're expanding the gap, you're building a true understanding of that person's problems and what they're actually trying to solve. And a lot of the times these really fabricated, disingenuous scripts of, so what's your goal and why is that important to you? Why though? These disingenuous scripts, they don't really actually have an intention of truly caring. My business partner, our chief sales officer, he always says, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so you have to actually approach it in a way where you dig deep enough to find that. But number 2, which is more important because it's more often missed, is you have to amplify desire. Think about this. Every minute you talk to someone, you're either getting further away or closer to making a sale. right? You're either talking them out of it or you're going the right direction and they're building more interest. And so I used to do an example, and I actually did it again recently. And yes, believe it or not, still to this day, every once in a while, if I need to make an example, I'll take a sales call myself and record it so my team knows. I never want to lose the sight of being in the trenches. I never want to be the coach that doesn't know how to swing a bat, right? So I'll jump in. And one of the examples that I did, I took him through an entire talk track. And it is cool. And I don't say this out of ego. I say this out of pride because I've worked so hard and so long to perfect my craft. But when I show it to a sales team, they're like, holy crap. You know, they're inspired by it. I said, hey, let me ask you something. If I stopped the call before I even transitioned into the quote unquote pitch, just after the discovery, and I asked them, hey, do you want to do this? What do you think would happen? We were on a Zoom call, right? Team training. And a bunch of people are like, they would have bought. They were ready to go. They were this. And I was like, well, isn't that interesting, though? I didn't even make the pitch. So how is it possible that they're actually seemingly ready to buy? They're like, dude, this is exactly what I was looking for. And I haven't even went to the pitch. Now, I'll tell you this. It's not because I'm pitching during my discovery. That's a horrible practice, too. You'll create objections, and they're not ready to hear it. It's because I am genuinely trying to find out what they're looking for. And then I am amplifying desire by demonstrating expertise and authority. And that's what we have to bring back into sales. You know, when we're on sales calls, they need to, their confidence needs to start increasing because they're like, holy crap, like this guy has the knowledge that I need. They know just simply by the conversations that you have, right? Simply in the questions that you ask should reveal how much you know. And so the way that we do that is by having that dialogue in the talk track, because I'll tell you this, you know, one of the things that we're very, very big on training against is if you're in a discovery process and you're treating it like an interrogation and you're saying, so what are your goals? Gotcha. And I know you hate that question, Anik. I'm making a bad example. This is not the right example, right? You say, what are your goals? Okay, got it. And why is that important to you? Okay, awesome. And what have you tried up to this point? Got it. And they just got it in between every question. It's like, that's not how conversations happen. So you need to take that information, right? You need to expand upon it. And in between those questions is where you're adding the substance where they're like, man, this person really gets it. They understand. And by the time you get to the pitch, it's almost like you should already know that they want it because you had the right conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's 100%. So there's a joke in our company. I suck at phone sales, right? Like the joke when we had a sales team, it started this way. One day they're trying to close a deal. I said, all right, you know, I'm the person's like kind of 50-50. I was like, I'll talk to him. And they're like, oh, you will? Really? That'll get the sale. I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to him. I talked to him, then bye. Did it like 2 or 3 more times. And the sales team starts to say, hey, that's like where sales go to die. Let's not send deals to Anik. And it was, I'll tell you why. We were talking to down market audience and I was talking in an up market script. It's just the track was all off. That's how I'm used to talking. Now you put me in a biz dev deal. Good luck getting out. I'm going to close that.
That is such an important thing you just said because now you're using the difference in the differentiator as down market and up market, which I think is interesting and makes sense. But it can also be defined as like B2B, B2C, but not even just B2B. It's almost, so we actually, what we call it opportunity seekers and active practitioners. And the reason why we don't just stick with B2B and B2C is because they can be B2B, but looking for a new opportunity. And so it's still they have way less knowledge. They're not as far up the gradient as is the way that we describe it. And so we call it opportunity seekers and active practitioners. Now it's so important because what you just said. Now I can come in with the most sophisticated talk track. You know, if I'm selling a business on a big deal and there's a negotiation involved, I know that just leaving the phone with me, they're like, I can't even afford to not work with that person because I showed them. I didn't tell them. I was saying things that you can't fake. It was so clear how much knowledge I had and how well I understood their problem. That's the type of talk track that requires. But I'll tell you this, and we have made this mistake. Guys, that's really important. Like I always like to bring the truth on these podcasts and this content where it's like, The only thing that makes me as good as I am at what we do is because we've made all the mistakes. Like, it's not like we're like, oh, we've been perfect since the beginning. Like, here's a big mistake that I made. I would see why those conversations were so effective in this type of sales environment. We try to roll it out across the board. Well, the down market, as you're describing it, Anik, the opportunity seekers that are just newer, less sophisticated, not in a derogatory way, but like you said, just on the subject matter, it was creating massive objections. It was stressing them out. The same exact talk track that would make the top people buy, these people are like, holy crap, I never thought of that. It seems like there's a lot to it. And so it's not a one size fits all is the main point there.
1,000%. So that's what I would do. So I'll finish this train of thought because I think there's people that are watching that are going to have a big epiphany from it. So that's exactly what I would do. I'd get on with the opportunity. I like opportunity seekers. It's a better word. And I would go into straight up consultative mode. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do And in my head, I'm like, dude, wow, good job, Anik. Like, I just blew my own mind. You should be,
Right.
you should be so grateful. Like, this is awesome. And the person would be like, because all they heard was like, it sounds hard. I can't do that. I can't do that. Whereas a practitioner would be like, damn, thank you, Anik. Like, holy, that was fire. You're like, I'm in.
Exactly.
So I'll tell you, someone, I can't remember who they are now, but this was a life-changing moment for me. This was a few years ago. This is prior to the FTC stuff. When my team had a joke, they were like, do not send your leads to Anik. He will kill the deal. And so I was like, thank God. Maybe I subconsciously killed those deals because I did not want to build this like habit of go to Anik for the deal. So I end up on the phone with someone and I'm telling them, I'm like, I suck at selling. And that person laughs. They're like, you might be one of the best I've ever seen at selling. What the hell are you talking about? I'm like, I can't close a deal on the phone for the life of me. He's like, why the hell are you on the phone talking to your customers? Now, you got to keep in mind, I'm Anik Singal, the guy that sold $200 million worth of products on the internet. I do this stuff in my, like the positioning, the brand positioning is like, I'm the best at it. I'm the best. I can do this and that. He's like, and you're talking to someone on the phone that's trying to get a business up and running, that's figuring out what an opt-in page is. Why is that even happening? And I'm like, well, my lead, and he stops and he goes, the worst person to sell a deal is the guru themselves. I'm like, well, that makes no sense. But this is a person, I can't remember who they were, but they were like deep in sales. And he goes, you can't do it. And he goes, it's subconscious. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, the other person, the deal was lost the minute you got on the phone because they want to know why the hell you're even talking to them. Right? So that feeling of like, wait, why does he want my 20 grand so much? Like he's willing to get on the phone with me? And I was like, well, that's weird. Shouldn't they be thinking like, wow, Anik is so great. He's willing to get on the phone with me. He goes, they do consciously, but subconsciously it's weird. And beyond that, he goes, and then you go and do your thing. And that thing is not what the thing that they needed. They just needed something much simpler. You go do too much. So I remember what happened. Biggest consulting contract I've ever signed. It was $350,000. Okay. It's a big company. They're funded. They were like 200 million funded. I'm talking to the CEO. The CEO is like, this is way more than we were budgeting. I said, yeah, I'm willing to bet that. But you were budgeting for someone that's not as good as me. And they're like, well, that's true. And he just goes, I'm not sure I'll be able to get the board to approve this because this crosses into board approval numbers. And I said, okay. That's literally, I just said, okay. And he's like, so, and I was like, well, so I'm looking at him like, okay, so, and he's looking like, so, and he goes, like, in his own way, it wasn't the exact words. He said something like, you're not going to counter or something like this. And I go, oh, I'm sorry. This is going to sound rude, but I don't handle objections. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't have time for this. I was like, with all due respect, I can do this for you and you can make the money, or I can do this for myself and I'll make more than $350,000 from the funnel I build. So there's not a negotiation or anything to be had about price. I know what I'm worth. I've done this. You can ask anyone around. I'm the best at this. That's the price. And if you have objections, I respect and understand, but I'm the wrong person to work with you. And the guy's on the phone. He just goes, F it, let's do it.
Right.
And I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, what? Like, because I was genuinely being honest. I was just saying, hey, I'm not. But what I ended up doing, so I was sharing that story with the same person who told me, and he goes, you see what you just did? You did the authority play. That's what needs to happen on the other side, which is dude, I don't need this. Like, this is the price. This is what I charge. I'm damn good at what I do. You're on the phone with me for a reason. But you can't carry that persona to every call. That would kill most deals. But in that deal, I'm talking to a guy who's funded a $200+ million company. He's serious. There's a certain level. He's researched me already. He's on the phone with me. If I start to hem and haw and drop the deal, do whatever, that's not what he's subconscious. That's how I would have actually killed the deal. But me standing my ground and saying, it's just, love you guys, and I'm here to like root for you on the sideline. But if you want me in the game, this is what it costs. And so for everyone who's listening to this, the big takeaway I want you to have with sales is like everyone looks for the script, but you brought up an amazing term, which is authority and expertise. And this is why I don't like sales being taught as a biz-op. This is exactly why I hate copywriting being taught as a biz-op, because I'm sorry, like I had a copywriter once come in chart. They told me that it was 10 grand a month to start with them. And I was like laughing. I'm like, what? It's like, who the hell are you? And why? Because that's what they're being trained, premium price and address objections. And I'm like, but kid, you literally have no experience. Like, this is a joke. And so you got to be able to, you got to talk the talk and have the chops, right? So the authority and expertise comes from domain expertise, getting into the trade, knowing it, having done calls, and understanding the product that you're selling. So if I'm talking to a sales team and they're like, yeah, we'll onboard, we'll get you going tomorrow. I'm like, never mind. You didn't even once ask me to talk to your sales team. You didn't once want to introduce me to your sales team. You didn't once say, hey, can I get multiple logins to your program so my team can go through it, can understand it? That just tells me you're not going to do the sale the way I want it. And so that expertise and authority comes purely from experience, right? So that's why I could look at that CEO in the face on a Zoom call and say, okay, bye, right? Because he knew, like, the authority and the expertise is there. If I'm going to make this money one way or the other. Either I make it for you or I make it for myself. The time's the same. Yep. So each call's got to be different. And the person on the phone's got to understand I love talk tracks, right? Because the talk track I was trying to go on, that one example I mentioned, that person should have picked up, this guy's a mover, and he should have changed the conversation and said, what are your questions?
100%. And that's actually, and Richard, I don't know like the timing for all the stuff you want to get to. And I know you had some really good subjects that you wanted to ask on, so you could interrupt me here right after this. But
Josh, what I really want people to take away from this interview, what I would love for people to take away is how do you put together that sales experience so that someone who's thinking about the team they want to hire, whether it be you or somebody else, I want them to be equipped to know whether they're talking to the right person, because not all sales teams are right for everybody. And that's one of the things I've discovered after doing God knows how many millions on the phone is we'd have a certain product line and I would literally tell Joe, who was managing my sales teams, and I would say, that's the right team for this product line. For the following set of reasons. And I think if we can, through this interview, equip people to better validate the person they're talking to, man, that's a service to them.
I'll use that as a kicking off point here. There's two things that come to mind. One is onboarding and integration. Because you said, hey, because I know those people. I know the teams out there that are like, all we need is a login and a Zoom, branded email, we'll be selling by tomorrow. And to me, it's so out of alignment, because I'm like, that's not how we sell. And I will also say, because an expectation has been built because of those types of teams out there, where sometimes it's an objection for us when we work with a new client where I'm like, hey, we need 3-4 weeks to be up and running. And they're like, whoa, like I wanted to go tomorrow. And I was like, you think you want to go tomorrow. You don't actually want to go tomorrow. And I'll tell you why. And so I'm going to talk about the onboarding and integration process. But right before I do, what you made me think of, Anik, is our talent acquisition process. Years ago, I said, you know what? If we cannot attract and retain top talent, we don't have a business model. So we're a recruiting and training first business. If we don't have top talent, we don't have a service, right? It all revolves around the sales reps themselves. Now, what we do, which is interesting, is that we treat our talent acquisition like customer acquisition. We put more emphasis on talent acquisition than most people put on customer acquisition. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, it all starts with an ICP, but it's not an ideal client profile. It's an ideal candidate profile. We build hiring avatars in the same way that you would when you're trying to market and you're looking for your ideal client. Well, if we're looking for our ideal candidate, We want to do the same types of exercises. We want to have the same types of messaging. We want to have funnels and job descriptions that are attracting that right person, right? Getting the right initial indication of interest. And then aside from that, not like Anik said, not every salesperson is right for every business, is right for every offer. So I'll give you just one example that's a little bit more of a hyperbole, but it makes the point very clear, right? This is more of an exaggerated thing. But we had a very high-end executive coaching type of offer. Now, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to answer this question, but the question is, well, should a 22-year-old kid wearing a hat jump on the phone to sell that deal? Probably not. Probably not. Now,
I've been on the phone with that 22-year-old kid.
You've been on the phone with him, and it's such a put-off. It is such a put-off. So literally that offer, what it called for was to have a team that was a lot more mature. The average age of that rep was much higher. The vernacular that they were able to use, which was much more sophisticated. The dress code. Yeah, dress code matters. We're taking calls on Zoom. They were wearing polos and button-ups, right? And that alone made some of them were wearing sports jackets, right? That alone changed everything because it was all perception on the call. And so it's so funny to me because, like, I have gone into businesses where they're selling a $50,000 consulting package to C-suite people, and they got kids selling the deals. And so to Anik's point, like when we're working with a client, we are really understanding who their customer is and making sure that we find the sales talent that makes the most sense for that brand. Now, I'll tell you this one other thing on that point. So the other thing that I think is a big mistake that people made is they overcorrect with what I just said there, where this is actually a pet peeve of mine that we train on constantly. You do not want your sales team to act like they are the expert if they're not. That is a fast way to kill deals because now you're being evaluated based on your rep's expertise. And even though they should, if they're working for us, they would be heavily trained on product knowledge because we go deep into that. If you're selling an offer, I'll make something up. If you're selling an example here, if you're selling an offer where it's a scaling program where this person is, it's their expert proprietary strategies and methodologies that they built over 30 years of scaling 8 and 9 figure businesses. A sales rep cannot, even if they have business experience, they can't try to take that on as a persona. And so many times, going back to compliance, by the way, I've heard sales calls in other organizations where they're pretending like that's them. They're like, yeah, so I've been doing this for X, Y, Z. And I'm like, no, you haven't. You're a sales rep. And so what I think is much, much more effective is that what we share is we are not experts on the thing. We are experts on the program. And I can explain exactly how that goes, but we anchor all actual expertise to the facilitators and the subject matter expert. That's really important. If you're trying to sell as if you're the expert, you're going to really sacrifice conversion. Something that small can make a big difference. Right.
I think that's such an important point because we've been talking about this a lot lately, how the experts we watch winning in the current environment, in the trust deficit or the trust recession, as we call it, are people whose marketing and sales shows instead of telling. It's a show, not tell approach. And it's a demonstration of expertise and what they do in their marketing and sales. But how do you do that in sales unless as the expert you just stay on the phone? And I think that's one of the things I'm really interested in that you just said is it's not the fast, quick flash in the pan of like throw sales reps, throw these high ticket closers, these hardcore closers on the phone and just ring people. It's actually building a sales team that has deep product knowledge and who is able to actually create paradigm shifts for your perfect customer through the questions they ask and the way they tailor their pitch. And so I'm guessing that in your guys' onboarding process, which is where I think you want to go next, that's a big part of what you do. Yeah. So what would you advise people? Like, what are you guys seeing as working on the field, out in the field, to help sales reps be able to demonstrate authority, demonstrate expertise without having to become 20-year veterans themselves? What are you guys
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, really good question. So first of all of our clients that we work with, or every rep that works for us, they have two training centers. They have our WFS training center, and they have the client's brand specific training center for the offer that they're selling on. Right now, I will tell you this: we don't do any cross selling. Right, that's a big thing that we do differently, other than a lot of these sales agencies out there. We don't do any cross selling for the sole purpose, the only purpose of the fact that it doesn't work. It's not effective, right? So a lot of these sales organizations are like, it's all first principles. We can sell anything. And it's easier from a capacity perspective because they don't need to be as stringent and as intentional about lead flow to capacity ratios. So they'll hire a sales rep to sell on 3 brands and they'll just kind of rotate them around. But like, here's the thing. Do I agree that with first principles to sales? Well, yeah. I mean, if you have me with sales experience selling something I don't know to somebody who's never sold anything in their life, I'll still probably sell it better. But I will never outsell that same version of myself with heavy product knowledge on that offer, right? So it's like, yeah, okay, but also no. And the second thing about that is there's no way that a rep, even if they're talented, can switch hats between all these different calls to different offers and different talk tracks and different avatars, and then do all of their pipeline management and follow-up in multiple different tech stacks. I mean, it just doesn't work. It's not effective. And it sacrifices conversions and revenue for the clients, so we don't do it, right? Not to mention our not to be gimmicky or cute, but our positioning statement is we're your outsourced in-house sales team. And that speaks to the way that we built what we have. Because is it a third-party entity technically on paper? Yeah, of course it is. We're outsourced. However, we build it in a way where all of the benefits of having it in-house almost all still exist. In fact, it would be hard to find a difference because it's the same team. It's a dedicated team. You have full visibility, full transparency. Everything's built in your tech stack. You want to listen to a call, do it. You can pull anything that you want. You want to have a conversation with the sales rep? Let's make it happen. And then what we do, which segues into your question here, is we actually believe, and we have a dedicated call to this, connecting fulfillment to the sales team. It's either once a week or every other week. Sometimes it's just every other week. And that is where you really get those breakthroughs that you were just asking about. How do you get your reps to a point where they're able to demonstrate expertise and make those aha light bulb moments on the phones? And it really just it comes as a natural result of them truly understanding what happens in fulfillment. And I'll tell you what's interesting. The first time, we've been doing this for a while now, but the first time we really started doing that, we had so many sales reps hear from fulfillment something that they had heard a million times, and they go, you know what? I've heard that so many times, and it just made sense to me now what it actually means. So like, it's not just about memorizing things about a program. It's having an understanding of how it works. Okay, so here's how we do it. Like I said, every rep has a sales training center, and then they have the client and the brand training center. By the way, even if you're wanting to do this in-house, you could do this. Here's the types of trainings we have. We have sales training. We have compliance training. That's not like a separate training center, but that's in the sales training. Then we have our process training. Then we have, on the client side, we have product knowledge training, but there's a next one that we built that is what you're asking about right now, which is called brand dynamics. What we realized is even if you study the product really well, each offer has certain intricacies and nuances to sell it really well, right? And so it's like situational questions, common scenarios that occur, how to actually present the program aligned with the pain points of the avatar, right? There's all of these things that we build in the training center, and then the call that we have with fulfillment is called the brand dynamics call. So it's integrating all of this knowledge into your sales team. Now, last thing I'll say on that, Richard, is, we call it onboarding and integration. Now, onboarding and integration, not onboarding. It used to be called onboarding. And the difference is this. Integration is actually an M&A term from mergers and acquisitions. And the concept is if one company buys another company, there's this whole concept called integration. right? Well, most acquisitions or mergers that fail, it happens because of poor integration, right? So without getting deep into an M&A discussion, here's an example of it. Is you buy a company because it was a great company and it was working well for all these reasons. They integrate it. They start making all of these changes, and now it doesn't work. Maybe it was a culture mismatch. Maybe they changed the things that were working well without knowing it. Well, as such a critical function of your business, a critical value engine being sales, we are fully integrated into your business. And so a big mistake that I would, if you never work with us, I would really caution you, if you're evaluating an outside external sales team, ask questions around how they would integrate, because if you just outsource and they're like, this is how we do it the same way every time, no matter what here, well, you could go down in revenue fast, right? You can go down in revenue fast. So we try to understand, and we go through a bunch of stuff. If they have an existing sales team, what was the comp plan? What were the incentives? What was the talk track? What were the close rates? What was the sales material they were using? What was the CRM? What were the playbooks? What were the expectations? What was the length of the calls? Was it 30 minutes or 15-minute triages? Like we have a whole checklist we go through, and in the first 30 days, every client is the same. Josh, do this as fast as you can. They all say the same thing. I say, hey, I respect that. I understand that's important. We're going to make almost no changes for the first 30 days. And we're observing and getting a deep understanding of why things work and what things don't. With that level of certainty and data, now we'll start rolling out all of the changes after the fact. And we're getting massive adoption to drive behavior with the sales team simultaneously.
That's massive. I love the term integration instead of just onboarding. And I think in order to achieve an in-house feel, that's exactly what you'd have to do. It makes perfect sense. One of the last questions I have before we start to move this towards a close is, I know there are a lot of people who are probably listening to this and they're reaching that critical point in their business where they're building a sales team. For some of them, it's going pretty well. For some of them, it's not going as well. Some of them are making money, but they're literally sitting in bed at night. I remember how it felt for me, like sweating and thinking about, one week they're on top of the world. The other week, no sales come in and they're pulling out their hair and thinking their salespeople are going to leave and they're not going to be able to make payroll in 3 weeks. And, like those are the real things experts are feeling. So what would you say, how would you advise someone who's considering they're building a sales team on whether they should consider building all of this in-house, the compliance piece and the product expertise piece, really all the pieces we talked about today, versus outsourcing it? Like what pros and cons and what factors should they be considering to know which is a good fit for them?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say a couple things first, and then I think it would be kind of fun to do almost a live role play to see an example here, because I think this is the clarity that most people are wanting to get here. But what I'll say is this: when I started WFS Group years ago, I had an assumption that couldn't have been more wrong. My assumption was this: I thought that my service was built for an offer and a client or an avatar that didn't know sales, that needed help with sales, right? I thought that was now, do we have some of those? Yeah, of course. But I'll tell you this, if you actually looked at our client base, more of our clients understand sales very well, which is why they outsourced. Because they know how much goes into it, because they know how comprehensive it is, and they know it's not just throwing warm body on phones. They know the recruiting, they know the training, they know it's constant development. Your top performer last week, his pet iguana died over the weekend. Now he's at the bottom of the leaderboard. Somebody who's been consistent for several months, something happens with his girlfriend or her boyfriend, and all of a sudden they forgot how to sell. And so it's constantly picking them back up. It's continuous rep development and maintenance, and the amount of time that goes into that. And so for us, a lot of the times it's subject matter experts or brands or executive teams that identify, okay, there's so much that goes into this. They look at their growth plan, they look at their budget, their forecast, and they say, these are all of the initiatives that we have. We can allocate all of our energy towards this, product innovation or roadmap type stuff, marketing, content, just all of those things that they do. and they can find a trusted partner like us to do the sales piece of it, which enables them to grow that much faster. It's all opportunity cost. It's almost the same reason you would buy a company, because you're collapsing the time frame because you have all of those resources, skills, frameworks, and the team, right? So I wanted to say that first. Now, I'll ask you this, though, Richard. Here's where it gets interesting here. I would want you to tell me, now, this is all predicated and contingent upon the fact that you find a sophisticated sales team that you actually feel confident knows what they're talking about. But let's assume you do, and let's assume it's me. The question for you would be, what do you actually get in-house that you're afraid that you might not get if you outsource? Seriously answer, not rhetorically, because I think this would create a good dialogue for us here for the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, the things that instantly come to mind, and this is specifically in our context, but it's losing control over compliance, not knowing exactly how those reps are representing our brand, brand consistency, losing control over one of the biggest levers in the P&L, which is sales, like having that be beholden to someone else, and depending on the compensation model, potentially paying a lot more theoretically for that outsourced function than we could if we did it ourselves in-house.
Yeah. So I want to tell you,
ones.
there's four things. The first three were control, control, control.
Yep.
There are different types of controls, right? Compliance control, brand consistency control, and then P&L control, which is kind of a vague thing, but we'll discuss. And then lastly is just the financial component. So let's take each of those four. Number one, and you guys are unique because you have a compliance software. So number one, it would be like, okay, well, we would have that be okay with using that compliance software so you have that same peace of mind. So we would have to make all of our sales calls available so you guys can have your compliance attorney review them and go through them. You would probably want to know that our sales management team knows compliance and knows what to look for in their own discussions and corrections, right? So, well, we do all of those things, right? Well, then the other piece of that is we have our own compliance software as well. Now, to clarify, we did not build a compliance software. We have AI call analysis. It's very very robust. It took us months to configure, where it scores every single call for compliance as well. So on the compliance piece, although it's a risk, here's what I want you to focus on and think about. Just a very short answer so I could go to the next bullet points. If you're using the same software on these sales reps, what would you actually have that gives you more control over compliance? Like seriously, what would you have?
I think
because at the end of the day, here's what I would only here's the contrast. The only difference would be if Richard, you yourself is like, well, if I did it in-house, I'm listening to every single call myself. Well, I know that's not going to happen. You're going to have a sales manager, director, whoever it is, to listen to them, and then you're going to trust them to give you the right information. Plus, you're going to have the redundancy with the software. Well, that's the exact same relationship with us, right? Go to the second one. You want to make sure there's brand consistency. Well, how would you create brand consistency so they're representing your brand correctly? Well, product knowledge, we build an entire training center for that. You would want to have lots of training specific to your brand. We set up the brand dynamics call with the fulfillment team and with you, right? And then again, we actually have the AI analysis on the talk track itself so it can grade how consistent they are in representing your product, right? The third thing, which is the P&L thing, I think that comes down to the relationship that you have. I tell everybody this, and I'll tell you the same. If you get to a point where you can't trust the outsourced sales partner because there's not visibility, there's not transparency, and there's a lot of bad answers, fire them and fire me. I say it about myself. I'm no different. Like if you're not getting the information you need and our answers suck, like we don't deserve that opportunity. And that goes back to saying we're your outsourced in-house sales team. Right. So when we work with our clients, and actually we just level this up in a whole other way. We have all of our we have scale scorecards and rep scoreboards. A scorecard is the funnel performance on the actual marketing funnel. And the scoreboard is the individual rep performance. Those are the two main things that we work on with the clients. we have full visibility on those things, but we actually just invested a lot of money into having these full digital dashboards that are all automated and integrated that are really freaking cool. But the point is, you have all the same information. Here, I'm going to say something crazy, right? Because you can see I'm just going to go down the line here. I'm going to say something crazy for you for a second, okay? It might sound crazy. I actually don't believe it is. I actually am of the belief that we should never be fired unless we do the things that we just said. We're all of a sudden shady. You can't trust us. There's no visibility. But assuming we're doing that and you have the same relationship that you have in-house, I actually think we should never be fired, because here's why. Let's say that it's the sales reps are sucking and they're not, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Well, then we should fire them. And if we could have that conversation to fire them. Let's say the sales manager is somebody that we both agree is like not doing what they're supposed to be. Well, we should fire them. Like, the point is, we have a relationship where everything you would normally need to do anyways, we're still doing, right? We're still, if that talent needs to churn, we're churning. And so now if it gets to a point where you think as a management leadership team, me and my team don't even have the ability or the insight to have those conversations with you and to find other people, then sure. But I'm just saying, when people say, I did this with the client, by the way. This is the last part of this answer. I did this with the client, and it was really interesting. I said, hey, let me just ask, because they were debating bringing it in-house. This was a while back. They didn't, by the way. And we still work together in this one example I'm thinking of. But they had all of these opinions on how we should be doing things. And, well, this person should be better and this and that. And we'd educate him and we give him the context on why it is how it is. And we would be doing it this way. But I said, hey, let's do something interesting. You guys are so confident that you would change the results if you did it in-house. Why don't you tell us exactly what you want to do? Anything you would already do on your own, let's just do it now together in this relationship. Let's do it. Let's implement it. You want the talk track to change? Let's change it. You want this rep to be fired and hire a new one that you approve of? Let's do it. The long story short is they ended up realizing it's not as easy as they think. And they started coming back to us saying, well, we don't know how to make this decision because of X, Y, Z. And we're like, exactly. And so that's the relationship we create. We're a full partner. And I guess if you lose trust with me, then we don't deserve the relationship anymore. But any other problem is we're working on it together.
Sold, man. Anik doesn't confront objections, but you just did it artfully. Those four, that was pretty incredible. Yeah. So,
well, the fourth one, I didn't say the fourth one, and I'll say it real quick. The fourth one's sort of an illusion because as a percentage, people may say, well, hey, as a percentage, we could do it. We could save more money in-house. Well, let me qualify that. As a percentage, right? So maybe you save on percentage, but as net profit, the only way you can make that assumption or conclusion is if you guys do it just as good or better than we can, and you ignore any type of ignorance curve, and you assume that you have all the playbooks and frameworks and systems and everything that we have, like now, right? Now, if you can do everything that we could do, you have all the skill sets, you have the willingness to build everything in-house, right? At that point, will you make more money in-house? Only at a certain level of revenue. And it's not by much. And I have the math that I break this down on, but it's not by much, but you could. But again, it assumes that you're good at all these things that we do, and you don't have the convenience of, like, now it's your job.
Yeah.
So that's the only time that would actually occur.
Man, such a good breakdown of those four things. And I think as I'm reflecting today, as we sort of bring this episode to a close, it really is, it's a new era in sales, man. It's a new era in online marketing for high ticket businesses. And so I hope that people will take away from this a couple things. One, dude, I hope they'll reach out to you guys in Wires for Strangers and at least have a conversation. If you're looking to build a sales team, man, I can say, Anik and I can both say, like, these guys are the best of the best. We only have the best of the best in our network, in our community, on our show like this. Josh and his team, I've seen behind the scenes the depth of their stack, the depth of their knowledge, their SOPs, the way they approach things. It's world class. But I hope that people will also take away, even if they're not quite ready to outsource sales, how they can start now to build a sales team that is compliant, but not just compliant, ultimately building a better expert business that's based on high trust sales to the right fit clients that ultimately produces happy customers who keep doing business with them. And I think that if you implement what we talked about today in sales, you put yourself in a position to build a great business over the long term that's not full of stress and anxiety and lawsuits and problems and bad actor customers. You end up building something that you're proud of, something that makes an impact, and something that can actually scale sustainably.
Yep.
And so, man, thank you so much for bringing your expertise to the table today, Josh. What would you say as we kind of wrap, if you had any parting words for our listeners around building high converting and compliant sales teams, what would you tell them?
Yeah, well, I will say this. I think we need a part 2. And we'll see if your listeners feel the same way. Maybe, guys, if you'd want that, let Richard and Anik know. But here's what I would say. What I would love to do is a podcast on exactly how to build a high-performance sales team. And then here's what I would say. You could do one of two things. Take the playbook and run with it yourself in-house, or say, okay, I understand the playbook, and I'd rather have a trusted expert like Josh and his team come and do it for us. But the reason I think that that's cool is because I can give him an entire breakdown on every single element of like how we recruit and how we're actually training the team.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a masterclass with our Board of Experts community, which you're a part of. We're going to have you do that there. And then before this episode goes live, we'll actually give it away to our community. We'll give it away to our community. So guys, watch in the show notes. By the time this episode goes live, we'll have that recorded. It'll be Josh's gift and our gift to this community to help them go further, faster. And hey, at the back end of that, you might just look at it and go, this is a lot of work. I'm just going to call Josh. So,
and if they don't, great, because it goes back to the right fit. If people have the willingness to do all those things in-house, they should. It's just not usually the clients that we work with. But Richard, thanks so much for having me, man. And my parting words, I always say this, like, sales is not that, and in this business, it's not rocket science, but it is extremely nuanced, and they are such big asymmetrical levers, meaning a very small thing can make a massive difference. You could tweak a talk track in one little way, and the conversions can change, right? You could train your team slightly differently, and you get a completely different outcome. And so it's just extremely nuanced. I don't know if I have like a this is what you should do type of thing, but yeah, all I would say is if you guys are looking for a sales audit, I always like to extend that. No obligation. There's no you have to work with me type of thing. But if you want me to legitimately audit what you're doing and give you some recommendation, and if that ends up working together, then great. Then reach out to me. My Instagram is troy.joshua. And I would love to talk more from there.
Yeah, man, I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in that after today's episode. So thanks so much for coming on, Josh. Thank you guys for listening today to the Expert Scale. So we'll see you all in the next episode.
Thanks so much.